Hey, what's going on there, guys? Ease here again, and we're gonna do a part 2 of our bush cutting, brush cutting, string trimmer, whatever you call it in your area, video. Anyway, so for every job that you do, you have to have a set of tools. Now, sometimes one tool will do it all, but sometimes it's really not meant for that job. And so, for me, I cut multiple types of grass, from very tall grass, as you saw in the other video, to kind of grass like this, which isn't so bad. Now, for every type of grass, one type of trimmer or bush cutter will do a better job at it. Now, for the really, really tough, tall grass, I would want the really big one, the monster right here. Actually, these two would both do it. If I had really short grass, kind of like this grass, I would use the smallest one that I could. Now, what's the disadvantage to only having the small one is when you get to the bigger jobs, it gets kind of tough for this machine to handle. And vice versa. If you get to the smaller jobs and you're using the big beasts over here, it can do it, but it's going to tire you out. They're very robust and heavy in comparison to the smaller ones. So you use a lot of energy for the same amount of cutting that you would get out of this. So, it all depends on the grass that you're cutting. If you're like me and you cut all types of grass and, it's kind of what you do, then you might want to consider having more than one. If you can't afford one, like, that was my position before. I only had one, which was this tiny one, and I made it work. The jobs were a little bit harder, it took me a little bit longer, but I made it work. So, and as you make money and save money, you can upgrade and continue to add to your toolbox, and in the end you have all the tools that you need. That's kind of how most of us start out anyway. So anyway, let me recap on the two that I had the last time that are still here, and that is the BT23L from Maruyama and the B42 Venom series from Maruyama. That's the smallest one and the biggest one. And then in between, I've added two more. This one I've referenced, and this one you haven't seen yet. So I'll just go from the smallest to the largest and tell you, the cons and the pros and cons of both, and what I think each of these machines are meant for. So from here, we got the smallest one, the B23L from Maruyama. This one right here is the lightest and the cheapest that they offer. I've had this one, man, maybe it's been years that I've had this. I mean, years. And it's cut, I'd have to say over 100 yards, easily. I've never touched the engine. This is how it came, brand new. I haven't started in days. I haven't used it. So let's see, what it'll take to start this guy. There you go. 2 pulls and it started. Cold start. So basically all I did was choked it, pulled it once, pulled it again, got it to sputter, turned the choke off, and it just continued to stay on. It's typically how this one goes. And that's how it's been since I bought it brand new. Over 100 yards, and to be honest with you, over 100 yards has got to be over 100 hours of work that this thing has done. And I've done yards like the past video with this same machine. I mean, it's an absolute beast. But because I got the bigger machines, now I fitted it with the blade. And as you can see, it's actually a Shindaiwa blade, but they all work the same. And so now I'm kind of given an easier task by not having to whip the string around, and now it just spins the blade and it cuts through the grass with ease. And I think that's going to add to the longevity of this. I think it'll probably give me 200 more yards when it's all said and done. Okay, so moving on up is kind of its bigger, older model brother. This one I think is a 23cc engine. This one here is a 32cc engine, which is the next step up. This is also a Maruyama. It's an older model, and it's lightweight too, but with a little bit more power. A little bit heavier, not as light, but you get more cutting power, I guess you could say, especially with the string on it. With string, it makes the machine work a little harder to spin it than the blade. So because I have a little bit more power here, I can get through the grass easier. And again, it's a Maruyama. Maruyama's are so reliable. Again, this is an older model, and let's see how it runs. This one doesn't have any choke, it only has a primer, so it takes a few more pulls to get the feel into the carb. But once it gets going, it's pretty much good to go. So that's the Maruyama 32cc bush cutter. They don't sell these anymore at this model, but if you find one, you should grab it, because for the design, it's very similar. The clutch assembly is very similar, the shaft, to the newer model, and you're gonna get it about half the price. I guarantee you. If you find a good one that runs, take it, jump on it. Now, I've referenced this one right here on my last video. I didn't have one to show you. It's kind of like a unicorn. So when you find one and it's available, you should jump on it and grab it. This is the Shindaiwa B450. This thing was the king of all kings as far as bush cutter goes. You couldn't touch this. In my opinion, for power to weight ratio, you kind of still can't beat it. However, I was off with my previous statement on my other video. I had said that nothing was as powerful as this, and I kind of got to recant that statement, because after having all these machines and doing a few more yards with both kind of back to back, seeing what it could do, you know, with the as power wise, I gotta say that the Maruyama B42 has the crown. There's a caveat to that though: power to weight ratio. Power to weight ratio. This one is lighter, and it almost has the same amount of power as the B42, which is a heavier machine. However, you kind of get a trade-off. This is a current model. They make parts for it. It's available in the US. It has no EPA restrictions. This model is, one, hard to find. They still produce these, but in the US they don't bring them in, and because we're a part of the US, they don't bring them here to Guam anymore. So as far as buying a brand new one, you can't, and the parts are so scarce because everyone just keeps buying them up, because everyone wants to try and save their B450 by Shindaiwa, that you know, the parts are at a premium. One thing I gotta say, when I picked this thing up, the base gasket had a crack in it. It was leaking. So I did go to my local parts store here. They did have one available, They also had the oil seals available for the front and rear. So, you know, it's just a matter of time before they run out of the parts, I'm guessing. But power to weight ratio, man, this thing, it's just a beast. And let's start it up for you guys. Very, very easy to start. I mean, this machine is old. And this is the Shindaiwa B450, which is a 41.5 cc motor. And last, and definitely not least, is the good old Maruyama B42, which I've shown you guys on the last video. Weight-wise, between these two, the shaft on the Maruyama is bigger than the Shindaiwa as far as the diameter of the pipe that runs down the length of the Bushcutter. The clutch housing on the Maruyama is also bigger, so I believe that the clutch inside is beefier than the Maruyama B42. Weight wise, let's check it out. This one has a smaller package. And for me, it's a little easier to swing this one around. Now, here's the thing though, for both of these, they're very big and heavy, bulky. Plenty of power. I mean, you know, to be fair, let's just start this guy up too, so we can hear all of them. So I'm just gonna prime it a little. And when you prime, all you're doing is filling up that bubble. Once it's filled, don't put any more pressure on it. You're not force feeding the car. Just get it to fill up with the gas. That's all you need to do. Put it to choke. Make sure the stop switch is off. There you go. Let's hear it side by side. Now you might be thinking, wow, the Shindaiwa really revved up super fast. There's a reason for that. It only has a double short whip right now. The Maruyama is pulling 4. So the Maruyama can hold its own. And to be honest with you, in real world situation, the Maruyama with 4 whip can just go non-stop through the grass. You barely hear variance in the RPM, whereas the Shindaiwa with 4 whip, it seems like it doesn't have the same amount of, I guess, horsepower maybe, or maybe torque at the low end, as far as as far as the gear ratio. I mean, when I say low end, the bottom here have gears in them, and maybe it's just geared differently.